The scream didn't echo. It cut through the building like a blade. October 1911, Lower East Side, New York. A 14-year-old boy was walking home from school, thinking about nothing important, until his world collapsed in a single sound. His mother's voice. Not anger, not warning, fear. He dropped his books without looking back, ran up 3 flights of narrow stairs, heart hammering, hands already shaking. The apartment door was open. What waited inside wasn't a robbery. It was a moment, the kind that doesn't ask permission, the kind that decides who you will become, whether you're ready or not. A man stood over his mother, a knife in his hand, blood on her face, money scattered across the floor. Rosalia Lucania lay on the ground, trying to crawl backward. Blood ran from a cut on her cheek. Her eyes were wide. She was crying. The man turned. He saw a skinny 14-year-old in a school uniform frozen in the doorway, and he laughed. That laugh would be the last mistake he ever made. "Get out of here, kid," he said. "This doesn't involve you." Salvatore didn't move. His mother looked at him, her voice breaking. "Run, get help." The man lifted the knife again, pointing it toward her. "I said get lost." And in that moment, Salvatore Lucania stopped being a child. What happened next took less than a minute, but it would define the rest of his life. Before we go any further, think about this. If you were standing there, watching someone threaten your mother, would you have the courage to act? Hold that thought. If you've ever wondered how legends are actually born, this is where those answers hide. Inside moments nobody records, moments people only whisper about later. To understand what happened in that apartment, you have to understand who Salvatore was before that day. He was born in Sicily, in a town where poverty wasn't an exception. It was the rule. Survival wasn't a skill. It was inheritance. When he was 9, his family came to America through Ellis Island, chasing the same promise millions believed in. Opportunity. Freedom. A better life. Instead, they found the Lower East Side. Overcrowded tenements, 5 families sharing 1 bathroom, cold winters, suffocating summers, rats in the walls, hunger in the air. His father worked the docks when work existed, standing in crowds of desperate men hoping to be chosen for a single day's pay. His mother washed other people's clothes for pennies, scrubbing until her hands cracked and bled. Shirts that cost more than her family made in a month passed through her hands daily. They weren't struggling, they were surviving. Salvatore went to public school. He wasn't exceptional on paper, but he was observant. Good with numbers, better with people, best at staying unnoticed. In 1911, invisibility was survival. The neighborhood belonged to gangs, Irish on one block, Italian on another. Jewish crews fighting for their own ground. Police presence was minimal, and when it existed, it wasn't there for immigrant families, especially not Italian ones. So Salvatore learned the rules early. Go to school, come straight home, help your mother, don't be seen. He walked past gang corners without making eye contact. He kept his head down. He learned which streets to avoid and which voices not to answer, until the afternoon invisibility failed him. It was just after 3 o'clock when he heard the scream. His mother's scream. Instinct took over. He ran. Books hit the sidewalk behind him. He didn't care. Up the stairs, 1st floor, 2nd, 3rd. The door was open. Inside was chaos. His mother on the floor, her dress torn, blood on her face. A man in his 20s stood over her, unshaven, desperate, a knife in his hand. The kind of desperation that didn't hesitate anymore. The week's laundry money, maybe $3, spread across the floor. Everything they had until Saturday. The man looked at Salvatore and smirked. "Wrong place, kid!" Rosalia tried to sit up. "Please," she begged. "Go!" The man shoved her back down with his foot. "Last warning," he said, stepping toward Salvatore. "Walk away." Salvatore stood still. Running made sense. Getting help made sense. But cops didn't rush into Italian tenements, and by the time anyone came, his mother might already be dead. The man raised the knife, not to strike, just enough to scare him off, and something inside Salvatore snapped. Not fear, not panic, clarity. The boy who tried to stay invisible disappeared. The man took one more step. Salvatore moved forward. He grabbed the first thing within reach, a heavy cast iron pan hanging by the stove. His mother used it every day, solid, unforgiving. The man saw it too late. Salvatore swung. The sound was brutal, solid, final. The knife hit the floor. The man staggered, blood pouring from his head. Salvatore hit him again, then again. The man collapsed unconscious, breathing shallow, blood pooling beneath him. Silence. Just Salvatore's ragged breathing and his mother's quiet sobbing. The pan slipped from his hands and clanged against the floor. Rosalia stared at her son like she didn't recognize him. "What did you do?" she whispered. Salvatore didn't answer. He didn't know how. She checked the man's pulse. "He's alive," she said, "but badly hurt." "Good," Salvatore replied. The word surprised even him. They had minutes, maybe less. If the police found the man there, Salvatore would be blamed. A 14-year-old immigrant boy wouldn't be protected. He'd be punished, marked, possibly taken away. Rosalia made a decision. They dragged the unconscious man down the back stairs, into the alley behind the building. No one stopped them. No one asked questions. That was the Lower East Side. You minded your business. You survived. They left him there, bleeding, breathing, alive. Later, they cleaned the apartment, hid the pan, washed the blood away. When Salvatore's father came home, he believed the story. A robbery. The man ran. 3 days later, the man was found dead in the alley. The police asked questions, knocked on doors, wrote notes. No one had answers. The case was closed. Another body, another file. But the neighborhood remembered. People watched Salvatore differently. Older boys paused when he passed. Men nodded who never nodded before. Voices softened. He wasn't feared. He was noted. And in neighborhoods like this, being noted was everything. If you're still listening, you already understand what that kind of attention means. Before we go deeper, drop a comment. What would you have done if it was your family? At home, Rosalia watched her son quietly. Not constantly. Not obviously. She watched his hands, listened to his breathing at night, paid attention to how people greeted him on the street. She had seen fear before. What she saw now was control. She never asked questions. Questions invite answers. And some answers change families forever, Salvatore noticed, and learned something else. Power must soften itself at home, not out of kindness, out of survival. The violence had saved his mother, but violence alone didn't explain why things kept changing. Salvatore began watching men who spoke loudly, who whispered, who never had to repeat themselves. He learned that violence was proof, fear was leverage, silence was command. By his late teens, he wasn't surrounded, he was connected. Runners, lookouts, quiet favors, nothing written, nothing official, just memory and consequence. This is where power stops being accidental. Salvatore Lucania never called himself a gangster. He saw himself as a stabilizer. Chaos was expensive, emotion was wasteful, mercy was misunderstood, mercy created debts, debts created control, and control was the real currency. The scream never left him, not as trauma, as confirmation. No one was coming to save you. If order existed, someone had to enforce it. And Salvatore accepted that role early. The city adjusted. History looked away. Official records stayed clean. But behavior never lies. A family untouched, a boy never challenged, a neighborhood stabilized. What time is it where you're watching this from? Let me know in the comments. If you were standing in that room and walking away meant leaving your mother on the floor, would you have done anything differently? Yes or no? History doesn't confirm moments like this. It records outcomes, A man found dead, a family protected, a boy no longer invisible. Whether every detail is true doesn't matter. What matters is that a line was crossed, and once crossed, it was never uncrossed. Violence worked, fear protected, silence kept him free. Those lessons carried him from a tenement apartment to the highest levels of organized crime, not because he was born a gangster, but because one day he chose never to be powerless again. Most people never recognize their moment. When it arrives, they feel it only after it's gone. That's why these stories don't live in textbooks. They survive in consequences. If you've ever felt chills listening to a story like this, imagine living it. If you were in his shoes, what choice would you have made? Where are you watching from? What is the weather like there? And if you want more untold stories of the real Godfathers, subscribe now. This is Untold Mafia Stories.